as well as working to spread the message in our community about how food actually does affect our mental health and our food choices and how they actually do affect our mental health. There's not a large enough conversation in our community about that. And so Brain Food Garden Project, with a harm reduction model, because I'm a firm believer in harm reduction, we wish to spread that message within our community. And I do this work because I personally have seen how it's changed my life, but I also do this work because I believe that we all are each other's brothers and sisters, and we need to constantly be there to reaffirm each other. And I wouldn't be where I am today in my recovery if I hadn't have had amazing peers that did that for me, that led me down the path of finding what I'm doing today. So. I basically didn't know what I was going to do when I got out of the hospital, and there was a doctor who was like, we need to get his HRA application started. And one of the guys that I sat with every day and had lunch with, we played cards, because as you all know, when you're locked in those walls, there's not a whole lot to do. Building popsicle houses only goes so far in art therapy. Right? I know. We got about 30 of them. I'll give you one for Christmas. But I was actually sitting for lunch, and I was getting called to a meeting to have my HRA application filled out, and he was just as intelligent as I was. He was just as well spoken as I was. He was just in as much pain as I was. And the only reason I could figure why he wasn't being offered the opportunity to fill out an HR application was because he was black and I was white. And I can't tell you how that moment of realization changed me. It started me on my journey of really trying to own my white privilege, but it really, I could get emotional. I do get emotional just thinking about it. And it wasn't right. And then how it led me to find my own path, which is the second part of your question, is, once you reach a certain level of recovery and you are trying to get housing, you're still in the hospital, right? And there are a bunch of other people coming in who are just starting their recovery, and it's real easy to drag you back into those places that you were in. And there was this concrete space underneath my windows that I would go out every afternoon after I had lunch. I'd bring my hot tea back to my room, and I would sit and I would plant a different crop in that space in my mind. And by the time I was finally released from the hospital, I had this flourishing garden, and I thought to myself, why isn't there a real garden here? Why is it that when people are locked in these four walls, the only thing that they have available to them is building popsicle houses? And so that was how Brain Food Garden Project started. I mean, at the end of the day, what we are as peers, we're a social justice movement, right? Right. And so, the fact that I feel so welcome and embraced in the peer world, and yet sometimes when you're talking to food justice people, and of course I need to be talking to them because I want to bring them into the peer world with gardening and realizing the importance of this wellness tool, you have a tendency to find that they shut down when they hear that you have a mental health diagnosis.
Interesting.
And you can actually see it on their faces, right? Well, I can tell them I'm gay, and it's come on to the table, But I tell them I have a mental health concern, and you can see them back away.
Get that look.
They get the look. You know the look.
Yeah.
We all know the look, right? So, yeah. So that for me was kind of revelatory, but it also made me step back a little bit for a while, and then I realized, I've got a big mouth for a reason, and if I'm going to shout from the rooftops about my mental health diagnosis and not be afraid to embrace straight people, lay people, people who don't get this and not care that I get the look, I'm certainly not going to back away from the food justice community, which is a social justice movement, and peers need to be brought into that movement just like they've embraced African Americans and so many other people. It's always about my listening to them first. My story is secondary.
Right.
In their recovery process. My story doesn't matter at all, quite frankly, in their recovery process. So it's really, for me, it's always about listening to them and then interjecting. I worked with an amazing peer who was transitioning. Mm-hmm. And he was a Hasidic, came from a Hasidic Jewish family. Yeah. And had all sorts of family issues connected to that. And those were things that I understood, having been disowned by my own family. And so I was certainly able to self-disclose in moments when that was relevant to what they needed in support.
So it's judicious. It's when it's
applicable. I think it always
journey.
Coming from the I place, I feel like it always should be.
Right.
In the work that we do. We can certainly have a conversation about whatever you want to have a conversation about while we're in that garden working together, but it's really about building and fostering community. I mean, that's what gardens do best, right? And feeding each other is something that we all should think about doing more of. I believe that the best peer work sometimes can simply be doing something completely other than concentrating on what your mental health concern is. Sometimes I feel like we have a tendency to do that a lot. We're always talking about it. I know I am.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes we just need to find other outlets, other resources of power. We watched communities of immigrants that have come to this country from horrific trauma, from living in their countries and dealing with what they had to deal with in their countries, that have literally been healed in a garden. So to actually witness that, I went and helped build a water system for a community farm in the Bronx. And this entire community was made up of immigrants that had been, people from Bosnia who really know what war looks like. Uh-huh. And the way that they had transformed themselves in that garden, growing food for one another, growing their traditional foods, mm-hmm. like being able to retouch something so important as their own food traditions. To watch trauma transform that way in a community garden like that was super empowering. And I think that it's really about building communities more and more and more. We need to build communities. If there's one thing that I would like to see is I'd like for more people like you and the people that are up on this stage, I'd like to see more people take their individual passions within our community and make them your own. Excellent. Build something from them. That there is still a lot of issues out there. Peers are being mistreated. Peers are not being heard within the workforce. Their knowledge and experience isn't being utilized to the fullest and to the best of organizations and agencies' potential. There is still a lot of work to be done in our movement. We need to start holding these agencies accountable. We need to start holding our politicians accountable. And I don't think we're really done yet. We have a lot farther to go. I don't think there is really one answer for it. Look, I've been following the 2020 race. I'm listening to all the candidates. I'm, of course, a gay man who's ecstatic to see a gay man actually getting a chance to possibly be our next president. So when I listen to Buttigieg, I like his model, which is, you know, we need to have Medicare for whoever needs it. You know, because if the model doesn't work for somebody, not everybody should have to use it.
Exactly.
But how you go about, first of all, we're not in any place right now to deal with it because we have a fascist authoritarian regime happening in our country right now. So we're certainly not in a place right now where we have anybody who really wants to deal with this. And the fact they're the ones tearing it up right now is literally terrifying to me. But I don't know if there's one answer to that question. I don't have it.
Maybe